Morning.
I love it. You do this all the time?
Once a week.
Wow.
I work Saturdays.
Man, how many years have you been doing it?
Only 3.
Okay.
Kind of a labor of love. I got a full-time job, but when I saw an opening, I applied. Wouldn't miss this, though.
Okay.
But
right up there, huh?
yeah.
And then to see everybody riding up and down,
Oh, absolute.
knowing it's your work that they're enjoying, their ride on.
Absolutely. Try to bring I call it the fun to funicular,
Yeah.
because it's a funicular railway.
Yeah. It is, but it's exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know?
It's like a time machine.
It is, you know?
Goes all the way back to, it opened up in its original location at 3rd and Hill Street in 1901,
Right.
when Bunker Hill was an entirely different place.
Correct.
They called it the Island in the Sky.
Yeah.
And back then, the only way you could get up or down it is by foot
Right.
or horse.
Right.
And even horses had trouble.
Yeah.
So a guy by the name of Colonel Eddy, who was a Civil War veteran, Illinois lawyer before that, friends with President Lincoln, came out here in about 1896, settled near Bunker Hill, and approached the city, said, "Hey, I'll make you a deal. You let me build it, I'll pay for it."
Good.
And the city said, "That's a deal we can't refuse."
Of course not.
In 4 months, he had it up and running.
Wow.
The first generation had the tracks actually on the hillside.
Right.
So there were 2 different slopes. From Hill Street up to what was then Clay Street, about the middle, was about 40 degrees. And then across Clay Street was flat, where the cars would pass each other. And then from Clay Street up to Olive Street, here, was about 70 degrees.
Okay.
And he ran it that way for about 3 or 4 years. The original cars were open air, sat about 16 people. And he said, no, enough of that.
Yeah.
Ripped those tracks out, built this trestle system, redesigned the cars to the form you see today.
Yeah.
And from about 1905 onward,
Yeah.
it ran that way. And then in 1910 is when the arch was built and the station house.
Okay.
And station house used to be amazing. Used to have 4 arches that went north. All of them lit up with light bulbs like this, in the same style, but made of concrete, and the weight settled into the hillside. And the city made him tear down those 4, he called it Angel's Rest. And but he was able to keep the station house.
Right.
Because I've always marveled at the ornate Beaux-Arts station house and the ornate arch, and then this undistinguished add-on they tacked on.
Right.
I'm like, whoever did that, and they probably did it around 1915, maybe a little later.
Yeah.
By that, this style was going out, so they probably didn't want to replicate it, but they didn't quite think of the disparity between the 2 styles. Well, Colonel Eddy sold it in 1912. He passed in he moved to Eagle Rock in a custom-built home, passed in like 1916. He was 84 by that time. So you got to think, when he started Angel's Flight, he was almost 70.
Right.
And he ran it for that first 12 years before he sold it. But it's remained in private hands ever since. It's kind of a public-private partnership.
Right. And that's a good thing.
Yep.
That's a good thing.
Yep.
Because, sometimes, you get different, mindsets and goals.
Oh yeah.
And they want to,
Cut corners.
Right.
Well, we've got the
Self-funded somewhat.
we've got the California Public Utilities Commission that kind of oversees, make sure everything's on the up and up. They're upset right now because our turnstiles are broken, so they're free spinning.
Right.
So we're trying to get that fixed.
Yeah.
And
But I'm sure they won't have a problem with that.
no, I mean, each of us as operators, safety first.
Yeah.
So we got to keep an eye on the arch,
Yeah.
make sure no one's trying to board when the cars start moving.
Yeah.
If we see it, stop the cars, get on the comm, step back to the street, please.
And then, I mean, it's an historical landmark, and, you know, I mean, it's a great attraction. You know, a lot of people, when they come to LA, this is one of their first attractions they want to come to.
Right.
You know, right along with Central Market, and so.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the thing I like to say is that having been born and raised in LA and seen so of my own personal landmarks as well as public ones just wiped off, because we're all about progress, right? We're all about forward. This is one of the few that we lost. You know, it was dismantled in 1969 to redesign Bunker Hill. And it was supposed to come back by 1971. The city made promises. Oh, we'll have it back up once we get everything done and built. And then it kind of just faded off. Till around 1980, people that were involved in the city's bicentennial, or maybe centennial, were like, hey, whatever happened to Angels Light? And they started pecking, hey, city.
Right.
So it took another 16 years of that until it opened up here a half block south in '96. So it's one of the few that we lost and got back. So that makes it to me that much more special, is that you're seeing it replicated pretty much how it was originally. Track's only about 300 feet, whereas over there it was 315. But the layout is almost identical to how it was originally. They were very meticulous in that. And it's okay. And so yeah, I try to, you know, 95% of the people that write it, like you said, they see it in a book. Oh, we got to do that. They write it. Okay, great, we did it. Maybe about 2 or 3% are like you, very curious about it, very interested in it.
Right.
So it's one of those. I got to kind of measure my enthusiasm, because if they just think it's a bus to get them up to the hill, they don't care about Colonel Eddy. They don't care about the distance and you know, right?
Want to walk, exactly.
Yeah, they're just like, hey, you saved me a walk.
Right.
Here's my money, let me go.
Right, exactly.
Okay, thanks for riding.
Right, exactly. You know, but once you get on it, it's a magical feeling that just comes over you. And you start to say to yourself, this is more than just a train ride.
Right.
It's more than just, you know, transportation up the hill, you know, because I didn't want to walk up the lane.
And the irony is, that's what it was when it was built.
Yeah.
It was designed, and it was a huge hit from the day one.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, wow, because I've got my own theories about the city's disdain for Bunker Hill. You know, the guy, Prudent Beaudry was who developed it. And he went to the city in like the 1870s and said, hey, let's get water and power up there. And they're like, nah, too much money. So he did that all himself. He got power up here, he did reservoirs, he got water up here, and he laid out the grid. The city has always had a don't look, don't talk about it approach to Bunker Hill, until they allowed it. And I say allowed because any city, when a neighborhood starts to decline, has a choice. You can renovate it and keep it, or you can be like LA and say, no, let's level it, let's erase it, and let's turn it into this. And so the city has always had a bit of disdain for Bunker Hill. And what I find remarkable is that the initial, and it held the elite up here, judges, bankers, railroadmen, it held all the rich people, but they never really consolidated their power and went to City Hall and said, hey man, you know, let's get better infrastructure up here. We don't want to do this on our own. And it wasn't until there were talks about demolishing it beginning in the 50s that the community really banded together and fought it hard. They lost. The city ultimately displaced about 9,000 people. And in honesty, it wasn't the grand island in the sky it had been. It was a diverse population, lower income, older. Boarding houses, the grand Victorian mansions had run down. There were a lot of fire traps. But again, I say that I can only hope that when they were planning all this out, kind of like the freeway system, I hope there was someone in the back of the room, probably got laughed out of the room, but I hope that person raised their hand and said, hey, what do you think about doing this instead? What do you think about, instead of building these freeways, why don't we upgrade the greatest mass transportation system in the world and keep that going? What if demolishing Bunker Hill, we reclaim it and we restore it? And then, like I said, I'm sure people that were around the table were like, get out of here.
You know, shut up.
Too much money at hand. So it's just another example of LA kind of turning its back on its history. And so that makes it that much more special that...
And now it's crown jewel.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, why is this here? Because they see the skyscrapers, they see the streets, and they're like, what? Why is this here? And it's a valid question.
Yes.
If you don't know the history, you think it was built 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just some kind of anachronism. But man, it's seen all of LA. When it opened up, there were maybe 10 cars in the city and maybe 100,000 people.
Wow.
And then through all that time, through all that change, it's kind of like baseball in Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
There's always baseball, Ray. Well, there's always Angels Flight.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's why I say I work full time. I kind of, I've been doing this only 3 years, but it's a joy to do it, and it's a joy to share it, especially. And I appreciate you for.
Man, I appreciate you. That's why I had to stop and say something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a pleasure. Our American treasures, we just don't take too much value in them anymore.
Until they're gone.
Until they're gone.
Until they're gone.
It's nostalgia, why? Because, you want to, take that ride on Angel's Flight again, or,
right.
see the, the beauty of it or whatever. And it's just like, oh, man, it's gone. But I'm just glad that it's here, and an individual like yourself, take your time out, dedicate yourself to it, for everybody to enjoy.
Because I'll be honest, pay sucks. I'm not in it for the money.
It's really never, that. It's like, if you're a true American,
right,
and you have that patriotism in you,
right.
You know what I'm saying? That's all that matters. Giving back.
That's why when I found out Colonel Eddy was a unique veteran of the Civil War, he didn't enlist like I thought he did. I found that he had actually been called to Washington, D.C. in April of 1861 to talk with the Attorney General about a judgeship in the territory of New Mexico. Well, during his arrival, they bombed Fort Sumter. So they started the Civil War.
Yeah.
And a freshly minted senator from Kansas, that state had just been admitted as a free state.
Yeah.
His name was Lane. He was a hot dog. He led a lot of the bloody rebellion in Kansas, and it was bloody. Yeah. It was its own civil war. Yeah. And so he gathered he was there to celebrate, hey, I'm a senator now. And instead, all the people that came with him and Colonel Eddy formed what was called the Frontier Guard. And there's 116 men. And because, believe it or not, even with all the turmoil leading up to Fort Sumter, Washington was basically unprotected. There was a fort about 12 miles to the north with about 500 soldiers in it. And what boggles my mind is that if the Confederates had wanted to after Fort Sumter, they could have sauntered into Washington, D.C., done whatever they wanted to President Lincoln, and it would be a different country today. But instead, they kind of they were hesitant. They lined up on the other side of the Potomac, they're watching, and these 116 men employed tactics of where they did things that made them their numbers seem larger than they were, and they just marched a lot, and they stood post a lot. They had a couple skirmishes. They claimed to be the first outfit that captured a rebel flag, and then they waited because Abraham Lincoln was like, "Help! Soldiers, come on!" So they're coming from New York. They're coming from Massachusetts, but it took a while. And for that 2 weeks, Colonel Eddy and these 115 other men held off what could have been an overrun of the nation's capital. Yeah. Then when it was done, when the soldiers arrived, they were honorably discharged, and they all went about their business. He went back to Illinois, became a politician, and then came out west in the late 1890s. And but I find that it's a part of Civil War history no one knows about. I did find that a Kansas lawyer about 10 years ago wrote a book called The 116 about that group. Yeah. And It doesn't have a lot of references to Colonel Eddy in it, but I found an article from like 1911 where they interview Colonel Eddy about his experiences in the Frontier Guard. So I got a little more background that way. But what an amazing thing, because you can imagine the chaos of the Capitol.
Yes.
Fort Sumter's gone,
Yes.
the fear that the rebels are just going to overrun, people fleeing, spies everywhere.
Yes.
And here these 116 men camped out in the East Room of the White House
Yes.
and said, not on my watch.
Exactly.
And that just gives me chills. 116 men.
It does. It
And-
does. To take on, you know, I don't want to say an insurgency, but you
Oh, yeah.
you gotta be careful with your words.
I know. It's funny, I just saw a photo on social media showing a mall in Chicago in the 80s, and there's a Confederate, it's actually the Georgia state flag that they changed in 2001, but it's hanging like off the side of an elevator in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, I made a comment like, because I don't know if you know the movie Blues Brothers, there's a great line in it where Jake and Elwood are like, Illinois Nazis, and then they're like, I hate Illinois Nazis. And I posted, I'm like, I wonder if they hated Illinois Confederates as much as Illinois Nazis. And then someone's like, well, that's the Georgia state flag. And I'm like, okay. But they created that flag not the day after they lost the Civil War, but coincidentally enough, in 1956, when black Americans were saying, hey, I want my rights. All of a sudden, this flag comes in.
Right.
So come on now. Okay, it's the Georgia state flag. It's not just from the Dukes of Hazzard. But come on. Let's keep the context going.
Right.
Most of those monuments that stood in southern cities weren't erected in 1868.
Oh, they got a little bit more history.
Yep.
You know, it's not, well,
Right.
but anyway, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's good being that, you know, keep the story alive.
Right.
Tell it, you know, that way, you know, it becomes a part of our history.
Right.
And that's the wonderful part about it.
Well, my name's Will. What's yours?
My name is Tyrone.
Tyrone, it is a pleasure to meet you and talk with you.
Get back to work.
Do you live around here? Kind of, sort of?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay, well, if you're ever in this area, stop on by. I work Saturdays from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, Tyrone, pleasure. Yeah, that's what it's all about, baby. Like-minded people love to hear. I will kill a day. Because now it's what? 6:54. Don't judge me.